interviewing Bubbie because her father immigrated here from, what's it called again?
Lithuania.
Lithuania. Bubbie is 68 years old. She was born in 1949. It is my mom's mother. Now should I start the question? Did you immigrate to America?
No, I was born in Baltimore.
From where?
No, I was born here. It was my father who immigrated.
What says that on the paper?
I know. It was my father who immigrated from Lithuania.
When?
He came here in 1927.
Okay. If not, wait, it says that. And your family came to America and when?
My father came to America in 1927. One of my grandmothers came here in 1904. And
That's even longer.
And another grandfather came here about 1900.
1900. Question 2. Wait, let me check it off. What do you remember? What do you remember?
I remember my father telling me a lot about what it was like to live in this small town he lived in Lithuania, which was called Trushkun. He lived there with his father and mother and one brother and 3 sisters. And I think his mother died when he was 12. So after that, he just lived there with his father and other brothers and sisters.
Okay. About life in your family's country or
Of origin.
Origin.
I think they were kind of poor. They worked very hard. I think they had a small farm. The people who weren't Jewish were not very nice to them. And after World War I, during World War I, they had to leave their village and flee from the war. And when they came back, all their possessions except for their house were taken. So they became very poor after World War I. And everybody worked hard, even children. They didn't have a lot of clothes. Sometimes they didn't have shoes. And if you didn't grow it, you didn't eat it. And they didn't go to school every day like you do. They went to a school called Cheder, where they learned to read Hebrew and learned about the prayers in Hebrew and about Jewish holidays, but that's the only school they went to.
What do you know about the journey your family took to America?
I know that my father had relatives who lived in America, in New York and Connecticut, that were his uncles on his mother's side, and they paid for him to take a boat from Germany to come to America. So they got all that arranged for him, and he came here in 1927 when he was about 16 or 17 years old.
Okay. What did your family members do for a living?
When my father first got here, he didn't know how to speak any English, so he worked for an uncle in the Bronx in New York who owned a grocery store and made deliveries and stocked shelves and different things to help him run the business.
Okay. Did jobs change between the home country and here?
Yeah, because he was no longer working on a farm. He worked in a store. And then another uncle who lived in Baltimore had him come down here to work for him in his dairy. And he was a milk delivery man. And he had a horse and a wagon. And the wagon had all the milk. And the horse would pull the wagon. And they would deliver milk to people's houses in Baltimore.
Okay. Was it hard to be an immigrant?
I think it was hard because he didn't have a formal education, and he didn't know how to speak English. And at that time, they didn't send you to special school to learn how to speak English. I think sometimes he went to school at night. But he had lots of family, and the family kind of decided, where and what he was going to do until he got a little older.
Okay. What were some changes?
He left his family. He had to live with he still lived with some family, but they weren't his immediate family. He had to learn English. He had to go to work at 17. And then he had to move to Baltimore. And in 1937, about 10 years after he moved here, he met my mother, and then they got married in 1939. And he was drafted into the Army in World War II.
Did your family speak a language other than English?
In Lithuania, they spoke mainly Yiddish because they lived in a Jewish community. They may have known some Lithuanian, but at home they spoke Yiddish. He could write in Yiddish, and the alphabet of Yiddish is the same as Hebrew script.
Okay. Does anyone in the family still speak that language?
Not very often. We know some of the words, and we use the ones that are common, like a lot of Americans use now.
Okay. Did anyone bring the special belongings from the home country to America?
I'm not sure. I think the only thing my father bought were his tefillin, and we still have them, and he had them recovered, and when you're bar mitzvah, they will be yours.
Wow. That really floats his boat.
What were they?
I said his tefillin.
Oh yeah, the tefillin. Have these items been passed down through the generations?
Well, since my father only had one child, and that was a girl. Women don't use tefillin, so they have to go to the next generation, which is you.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, those days women didn't use tefillin.
How is our life today different from the life of our immigrant relatives?
In Europe, they didn't have any cars. They didn't have any electricity. I mean, certainly there wasn't TV and computers. They walked everywhere or took their horses. Even when my father came to the United States, the milk cart was not a truck. It was pulled by a horse, and so things were a little more difficult, and they didn't have very much money, and they worked very hard. And my father used to tell stories to your mother how she shouldn't complain about chores that I asked her to do, because he had to do everything, including carrying water. Their house didn't have any running water, so they would have to go out to the well and get what they needed and bring it back into the house.
Mm-hmm. What would they be surprised about?
Oh, I think my father would be surprised about all the technology today, because he died
1986.
Yeah, almost 32 years ago, and that was before we had cell phones and a lot of and iPads and all the fancy technology today. You know, people were just starting to get computers in their homes at that time.
Happy about what? Wait, that says on the paper. Happy about.
What?
It says happy about.
Oh, I think my father would be very happy to see his great-grandchildren. He saw his grandchildren, but he died when they were little. So he would, if he were still alive today, which would be a big stretch, because
Who's his grandchildren?
Because he'd be 107. He would be happy to see you and your brother and your sister and Aunt
Noah
Nancy's children.
And Samara?
Yeah.
What do you What do you hope I will one day tell my children about our family?
That we have traced our family history back to before 1800 on my father's mother's side and on my father's side, and now it's online on a website, and we even have a picture of my father and one of his brothers and sisters on the screen, and then how important.
Can you tell who is who?
Oh, that's my father. That's his sister, and that's his brother. The sister in the middle, which is a very important person to me because I have the same name as her because she was killed in the Holocaust. So it's very important to me to carry on the Jewish tradition and Jewish values with my family. So I think my father would want you to do the same thing because he was a very kind and generous person with very good Jewish values.
What lessons should I pass on?
How to be a good person, how to be a good Jew, how to be a lifelong learner, how to be good to your parents and your family, including your brother and sister.
Including them.
Any other questions, Henry?
No. That's it.
What do you want to say to Bubbie?
Bye.
No.
Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome anytime. And if you want to go look on the website with me sometime, I'll explain who everybody
Are there any
is.
other pictures that you want to show?
Let's see. I mean, this is...
So
Who's
which
that?
one is Rachel? So who's that?
So this is my father's sister, Bunka, who died in the Holocaust.
Bunka.
This is his sister, Peska, who went to... escaped Lithuania before the Germans came and went to live in what was then Palestine and then died there. But she had one son there. And this is his sister, Frida, who came to visit the United States in 1972 and went to live in Israel and died in Israel. But she went to live in Israel in 1990 with her husband and all her children who had immigrated to Israel. And
What's that?
we don't know who that is, but it's Frida and Bunka, about 1939. She was killed, I think, in 1943.
Oi.
They're pretty tall, my family. And so, in this picture, you've seen it. That's your friend Ben and who else? Sam's.
Can you make it bigger?
That was the original picture. That's their grandfather. So
Great-grandfather.
great grandfather. So you have cousins who go to Schechter also. And he came when he went to come to the United States wasn't letting any more Jewish people in before World War II. So first he had to go to Canada, and then he came to the United States. And as a result of that, my father and his brother had two different last names. Because immigration gave them, because we were Kasnets and he was Kaysen. So,
Oh, that's so funny.
and I always wonder, why do brothers have different last names?
Anything else?
I don't know. Let's see what else is here. I mean, this is the whole family tree. I mean, this is a lot about the family. And if you wait, we go back up here. So this is all about the Kozhenets family. And this is the old Jewish cemetery in the town where they lived. That's what's left of it. A lot of the stones are knocked over. And essentially, in World War II, 85% of the Jews from this town were killed by the Nazis. And what else do we have here? Memories.
Is it almost over?
And it can be over, honey.
All right, what do you say to Bubbie?
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you for helping me.
Me on my project.